Hey everyone, I'm doing something totally outside of my comfort zone, something that I don't want to do, but I feel like I need to do. And I wanted to share with you something that our Colorado legislators are doing right now and ask you to please consider contacting your representative and your senator that represents you. And especially if you are someone within the I-25 corridor that has a higher percentage of legislators than those of us in the rural parts of Colorado, we need you to speak up because our legislature, our senators and our House representatives are not okay with what's happening, but it will be imposed upon people in rural Colorado. So let me give you just a quick snapshot. And if all you hear is this quick snapshot and you turn off the video, that's fine. But consider, first of all, looking up Senate Bill 25-003. I suggest looking it up on YouTube because you're going to get some video. My best resource is the Teller County Sheriff. He has posted plenty of video that is logical. It's not filled with frustration. It's just logic. And I would suggest listening to the Teller County Sheriff and what he has to say about this gun bill. It is a gun bill. Let me tell you why this gun bill is frustrating to so many. I'm just going to give you a very quick overview. You can read the bill yourself. The first thing that it started with is a bill to completely restrict a certain type of firearm. A type of firearm that I believe the number is 80%. 80% of guns fall into this category. And so they want to restrict 80% of the type of modern guns that are used every day for hunting, for self-defense, but also on a ranch for protecting livestock. And that's a big deal. For people that believe in the Second Amendment and the entirety of what the Second Amendment says, then it matters. But regardless of that, there are some other things in this bill that are very discouraging. It's irresponsible, this particular bill, for reasons besides the Second Amendment. So whether or not you stand on a Second Amendment platform, that's really not my biggest concern in this legislation. It's something else. I feel like this bill is irresponsible and it's pretty sleazy. I looked up the word sleazy and it fits in here, and I will explain why. So again, if you want to turn me off right now, then go ahead, but look it up. Look up this bill and look up what the Teller County Sheriff has to say about it to help you understand why this is a bad, poorly crafted bill. Please contact your representatives and your Senate, but also talk to Governorpolis. Send him, call him, write him. Let's make sure that they know this is really not okay. We also need to ask Governorpolis to veto the bill, because in our state, if this goes through, it needs to go through the House and be approved and then back to the Senate to be approved. And once it hits his desk after that, if he just lets it sit there and rest and he never signs it, it automatically goes into effect. And he gets the out for not signing the bill, but he really did sign it with inaction. So we need to ask him to veto the bill. So that's my ask of you. Let me tell you a little bit about it. It is a bill that originated to completely restrict those particular firearms that I was talking about. And this started in the Senate, our Colorado Senate. they realized, oh, that's against the Second Amendment right to restrict firearms, right? Because they shall not be infringed. And so they sort of did a weaselly way around it, and they said, well, we won't take away the right. We will make it so that people have to buy their right. Now that doesn't sound to me like they're really following the guidelines of shall not be infringed, but that's what they're doing. That's how this bill began. But what happened in the process is they have totally changed this bill from that very beginning, and they've added the thought where, okay, well, we'll let rich people buy their right to own any firearm they want. Poor people will be excluded, and we're going to require that there be testing, that there be lengthy classes that must be taken, even if, as most firearm owners would say and testify, they've already had a lot of training. They're still going to require this massive training, and you would have to pass a test at 90% pass-fail. That is a huge margin. I forgot to look up what it is, like what does the Bar Association, what's their marker? I wonder if it's 90%. What I do know in my industry, that is professional fireworks shows and movie special effects, our bar is 80%. So we have to pass a test at 80%. That seems reasonable, doesn't it? But 90%, that will absolutely limit certain people who are not really great test takers to be able to have their Second Amendment right, their full Second Amendment right. So on top of that, what happened, this morph of the bill, is they know that the state is out of money, and the state is out of money. We are, I think it's a little bit over $1 billion shortfall this year. And so they know that there is no money to fund this. But guess what? There's money at Colorado Parks and Wildlife. And so what they've decided to do is take money from the Colorado Parks and Wildlife and have them be the caretakers of this new gun control legislation and put it into their hands because they have the funding to make it happen. They are stealing from our conservation department in Colorado. I care deeply about this. They are stealing from the people that take care of our parks, take care of our natural resources, take care of the wildlife in Colorado, and they're going to use that money to make this happen. They think they're going to get the money back by charging all kinds of fees for people, but I don't think that's going to happen. They're actually going to come to a shortfall. That's my opinion. We'll find out. Regardless, the money that you have put in to the Colorado Parks and Wildlife is going to be used for a different purpose at this point. So that's a problem. The bottom line here is this is a poorly crafted bill. I am somewhere in the middle in politics, and that's one reason you would never hear from me talking about these things. But this particular bill is something that goes far beyond the reach of what our government should be doing. Not only that, I sat in on the judiciary hearing, part of the judiciary hearing. It was 10 hours long. I didn't have an extra 10 hours to sit through the entirety. I did sign up to testify at the financial hearing because I'm so concerned that our Democrats, and this is a party line type of vote. There are some Democrats that are voting no, but there are no Republicans that are voting yes. So in that case, it does become a partisan bill, not a bipartisan bill. And I am so disappointed that our Democrats would take money out of conservation to do this. I think that it is hypocrisy. And I often hear a platform of conservation and caring about the environment, and then to do this just breaks my heart. And like I said, I'm somewhere in between on all of these things. So I am not your, I don't know where I am politically, as a matter of fact, but I do know where I stand on this one. And it was disappointing, to say the least. Very disappointing. I'm going to share just a few things that I heard in that testimony. And then again, if there's plenty of opportunity for you to listen to the testimony if you would want to. It is recorded and you can listen for yourself. But in the Judicial Committee hearing and in the Financial Committee hearing, what I learned and what I heard from our Colorado legislature, our Colorado lawmakers, I'm going to share just a bit right here. Number one is that I heard valid and strong arguments from the people, which we are a government of the people and by the people, even in the Colorado Constitution. There were strong, valid arguments brought to the table in these hearings. And amendments were supposed to be made, and some amendments were made, but I never once heard an amendment. I listened to the end where the lawmakers decided on amendments and then voted yes or no. In both hearings, I listened to that entirety. They never once addressed the concerns of the people. That was incredibly disappointing. I did not hear concern about what the people are worried about. And these are not small matters. Again, I just told you how this morphs. I'm talking about things that are not in the realm of whether you like guns or don't like guns or think that guns should be controlled. There are things in this bill that have nothing to do with that are troubling, okay? So one addressed concern was, or one concern that was not addressed, I should say, is the discrimination against the less fortunate people, low income and people on fixed incomes. They were totally ignored. And I heard one of the lawmakers arrogantly say, if you're poor, you have no business buying a gun. And I'm giving you Ginger's paraphrase there, but that was the gist of what was said. And I was appalled. The idea that an arrogant lawmaker would look down on somebody for that reason is, and from the Democratic Party, to say the least, is appalling to me. The Democratic Party professes to be for the people and the less fortunate and care about those things. In this case, they don't. And I heard it from this lawmaker's mouth. This was in the end of the hearing, so you can listen to that and hear it for yourself. The thing is, what if a low-income person has a friend who has one of these guns that are up for sale, or even willing to gift it to them legally, going through background checks, going through a 3-day wait, all of these things that we have to go through. And there is no monetary problem here. This arrogant lawmaker thinks that because you're poor, you shouldn't have access to it unless you have the money to buy your right. So what this person would have to do is go through this huge testing process, pay money to do it. It's going to be very expensive. In my opinion, it's going to be around $500 to buy your right. Now, what do I know? I know nothing. It might be $1,000, and some people are wondering if it's going to be even more than that. But it might be, it will be in the hundreds. That's a for sure fact. But low-income people will find it very difficult to fulfill their right to bear arms. Okay, so that's one issue. Second issue that was addressed was a concern regarding a test that requires a 90% pass-fail. There are people that I know personally that have a hard time reading, that have dyslexia. They are very smart people, and in no way would they not be able to follow the law or understand how a gun works. They could go through the training and learn, but to pass a test at 90% is incredibly difficult for some people. It has nothing to do with their ingenuity. It has nothing to do with their ability to understand laws and know what they're doing is right or wrong. It is purely because it's hard to take tests for some people. And our lawmakers discriminate against those people. And that makes me upset. That makes me sad. Okay? In the last hearing, there was an enormous concern that the bill was egregiously out of touch with the real costs that will be imposed should this bill come into play. And remember, they're saying, well, let's take money from Colorado Parks and Wildlife to fund this. Well, what's happening is they are changing the numbers to fit their little perception of what will happen. But there were such smart people that had done the math and showed up at this testimony to say, your numbers don't work. It's not going to be like that. So that was never addressed. They don't care. And then there was a lack of concern, and I'm going to say it this way, by the Democrats, that the money would be siphoned off of the Colorado Parks and Wildlife in order to fund this bill. And the reason they're doing this, by the way, is so that it does not fall under the Tabor Amendment. And so it's really an under the table, underhanded way to get this passed. One of the other Democratic legislators said that she's really tired of this Second Amendment versus First Amendment conversation, because this particular bill does pull into question why it is that we have to buy our Second Amendment right. And the question being, okay, what's next? Do we have to buy our right to vote? Okay, we have the right in the United States of America as citizens to vote. But what if we had to pass a test? What if we had to pay a fee in order to get this little card that said, okay, now you can vote. You've passed the test, you've paid a fee to take the test, and you've got the card, and there's all kinds of red tape involved in that. What if we had to do that? I guess you could say that we do have to do that with a legal identification card, but that only costs $10. We're talking about something that's going to cost $500. What if you had to pay $500 to get your rights? Okay, so the other question is, we have the freedom of speech, thankfully. We have the freedom of religion. We have the freedom of the press to write what we feel and present to the public what we feel. Those are rights given to us by the Constitution. What if you had to pay for those rights? What if you had to address the government and get a card before you could go to church, or even to a synagogue or a mosque? You're not allowed to worship as you want to because you have to buy that right. What if that were true? Now, this legislator said, I'm tired of this argument because we do put restrictions on the freedom of speech. You can't say certain things in public. Okay, I've got you. because you can't go into a bank and make a threat without it being considered a felony offense. That's true. However, what she is not seeing, or saying, I should say, is the Second Amendment is restricted. There are a lot of restrictions set on the Second Amendment. And a lot of people would argue that in itself goes against the right to bear arms shall not be infringed piece, the shall not be infringed piece, because the First Amendment doesn't say shall not be infringed, but the Second Amendment does. So that's a good argument. But what we really have to realize is we are put under limits. There is no willy-nilly use of the Second Amendment anymore. Now, that may have been true in the 1800s in the Wild West. It isn't like that now. In the last 5 years in the state of Colorado, they have passed 20 gun control bills. 20 in 5 years. So that argument that says we should be restricted, and so is the First Amendment. Like, yes, okay, and we are. So that is not a valid argument anymore, because if you look at those two side by side, one is actually way more restricted than the other. I care about these things. I care about people. As a rancher, I care about being able to protect my livestock. And we don't have cattle ranches. I've got, those of you that know me, I have chickens. I have a big flock of chickens. And so I don't have the ability to have anything more than that right now. But I live out in rural Colorado, and I have mountain property. On our trail cam, we see lion, we see bear, and we just recently heard about wolves coming in to our area. And to not allow people that live in rural parts of Colorado to use the best gun to protect themselves, their family, and their livestock is equally irresponsible. We have to be able to do that. And I'm just going to give you one more point. My little flock of chickens, we care so much about them, and we have predators that attack them. Foxes, skunks, raccoons, coyote, and other animals. And we have to be able to protect them. Just this past month, I watched an animal attack my chicken and kill it. And so you had to yell out to Larry, and we had to run out and take care of our chickens and our flock, because that's real life. That does happen. And we need to be able to protect our livestock. And again, I'm talking about a relatively small situation, but if that were my livelihood, I absolutely need to have that right. And it should not be infringed in any way to protect your family, your livestock, your livelihood, your home. These things are really important. So if you made it all the way through to this point, I would just ask you to again consider looking up the bill. Go to YouTube, look it up, look at the Teller County Sheriff, what he has to say, and contact your representative, contact your senator, and contact our governor, and ask our governor to veto this bill if it lands on his desk. And we'll see what happens. And my trust is in the Lord. It's not in our government. But I also know that we have the right in the United States of America to approach our government and to ask them to do some things different. And in this case, that's what I'm doing and what I'm asking of you to consider doing. Thanks so much. And again, this isn't something I do. So have a great day.